So in these problems, we are going to be solving, and they are still going to have squares in them. So they're still trigonometric equations that have squared pieces in them. So for example, solve in the interval 0 to 2 pi. And I should bring up our handy dandy unit circle here so that we can reference it as we're going. Okay, so the first one here, we're going to look at sine squared x minus 3 sine x plus 2 equals 0. So in this case, because I happen to have a sine here and it's squared, and I have a sine here and it's not squared, I can't just solve for the trig function. So what I actually need to do in this case is I need to actually factor this. Now, what this is kind of acting like, it's acting as if I had... if I was trying to factor the equation, say y squared minus 3y plus 2 equals 0. So to solve that, we would have to factor it. It would factor into y minus 2 times y minus 1 equals 0, which means my original equation factors into sine x minus 2 times sine x minus 1 equals 0. So it's very similar to factoring a quadratic equation where you just have the variable, but this time, besides the variable, you also have the trig function. And now I have this factored form, and so what I can do is I can take each one of these factors and set them equal to 0. So I can solve the sine x minus 2 equals 0, and then I can also solve sine x minus 1 equals 0. And then we're going to look at each piece. So if I add 2 to both sides, we have the sine x equals 2. Now, if you remember, the sine is the y value, and the sine function, just plain old sine, never goes bigger than 1. So it is always living between 1 and negative 1. So this first piece here doesn't give me anything. There's no solution to this first piece. The second piece, if I solve it, we're looking for when sine x is equal to positive 1. And sine x is equal to positive 1 when x is equal to pi over 2. So in this case, our answer, there's only one of them, and it is that, x equals pi over 2. We could have ended up with one answer, we could have ended up with no answers, we could have ended up with 4 answers, so there's all different amount of answers we actually could end up with here. And we'll do another one. Let me go to another page. But let me add back in our unit circle so that we have it. Okay, so this one here, we have 2 cosine squared x plus 7 cosine x minus 4 equals 0. So again, it looks like a quadratic equation, except instead of just x squared and x's, we have cosine squared and cosine x's. You are more than welcome to do what I did on the last problem if you need it to help you factor it. If it's easier to factor, if you think of this as 2y squared plus 7y minus 4 equals 0, that is completely okay. If you do that and you factored, you would get 2y minus 1 times y plus 4 being equal to 0. So our original equation is going to factor into 2 cosine x minus 1 times cosine x plus 4 equals 0. And then if I solve each side, I get 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0. And set the other part, cosine x plus 4 equals 0. Add 1, so 2 cosine x equals 1. Divide both sides by 2. Cosine x equals 1/2. Here subtract 4, so we have cosine x equals minus 4. And so again, cosine x can never be equal to minus 4, right? Cosine lives between 1 and minus 1. So this part has no solution. This part here, x equals 1/2. So that does have solutions. That's going to happen when x is equal to pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So this has two solutions. And we'll do one more. I think I can fit it down here. So C cosecant squared x plus 3 cosecant x plus 2 equals 0. So again, if you need to, you can think of this as y squared plus 3y plus 2 equals 0. So this would be y plus 2, y plus 1 equals 0. Or we're saying that the cosecant of x plus 2 times the cosecant of x plus 1 equals 0. And then I'll come over here. We need to set each of those pieces equal to 0. So cosecant x plus 2 equals 0. Tells us the cosecant of x is equal to minus 2. Cosecant of x plus 1 equals 0 tells us the cosecant of x is equal to minus 1. And so now we just have to figure out where that happens. Remember, cosecant is 1 over the sine, so this is really saying that the sine of x is equal to minus 1/2, and the sine of x is equal to minus 1. So the sine of x is going to be equal to minus 1/2 when x is equal to 7 pi over 6 or 11 pi over 6. And x is equal to negative 1 when x, or sine of x is equal to negative 1 when x is equal to 3 pi over 2. So the answers here are x equals 7 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, and 3 pi over 2. So in this case, you get 3 answers.